Hi, it's Jo Karen Hudson. Today we're going to talk about the quadratic formula. The solutions to a quadratic equation in standard form, and this is what a quadratic equation in standard form looks like, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. These solutions where a, b, and c are real numbers and a is not equal to 0 are given by this formula. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, we have a little song that we sing in Conway to help us remember that quadratic formula. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but probably not. It goes to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. It goes, x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Alright, maybe that will help you remember that little formula. It's fun anyway. So we'll start off with our first example. Now, where does the a, b, and c come from in this formula? Well, it comes from the coefficients of the variable x. So this one is understood to be 1, so we'll say that a is 1, and that b is negative 1, and that c is negative 6. So now I'm going to use my quadratic formula. X is equal to negative b, which is the opposite of b, which would be 1, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So b is negative 1, so negative 1 squared would be positive 1, minus 4 times whatever a is times whatever c is, and a is 1 and c is negative 6, all over 2a. So we have x is equal to 1 plus or minus the square root of 1, and let's see, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times negative 6 is plus 24 over 2a, and a is 1. So we'll have x is equal to 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 plus 24 is 25 over 2. And we know that the square root of 25 is 5, so we can change this into x is equal to 1 plus or minus 5 over 2. So at this point we'll have to separate it to solve it. X is equal to 1 plus 5 over 2, and x is equal to 1 minus 5 over 2, or x is equal to 6 over 2, negative 4 over 2, or x is equal to 3 and negative 2. And those are our two solutions, and they are normally typed in separately. Okay, our second example, we can look and pick out our a, b, and c. Our a is 2, our b is negative 5, and our c is negative 3. So we have x is equal to negative b, or the opposite of b, which would be 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So b squared is negative 5 squared, which is 25, minus 4 times whatever a is times whatever c is, and a is 2 and c is negative 3, all over 2a, and a is 2. So we have x is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus, let's see, negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, and negative 8 times negative 3 is positive 24 over 2 times 2, which is 4. So we have x is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 49 over 4. And we know that the square root of 49 is a perfect square, so we have x is equal to 5 plus or minus 7 over 4. At this point, we have to separate it into x is equal to 5 plus 7 over 4 and 5 minus 7 over 4, so that x is equal to 12 over 4, negative 2 over 4, so x is equal to 3 and negative 1/2. Those are our two solutions. Okay, example 3, and we want to get this in ax squared plus bx plus c form equal to 0 into that standard form, so we need to multiply it out first. When we distribute the 2x with both of these, we'll have 2x squared plus 8x. We want to move the negative 3 over. It'll become positive 3 is equal to 0. And so that a is the coefficient of the squared term, it's 2, and b is the coefficient of the linear term, which is 8, or the x term, and c is the constant, which is 3. So we have x is equal to the opposite of b, which would be negative 8, plus or minus the square root of 8 squared. B squared would be 8 squared, which would be 64, minus 4 times whatever a is times whatever c is, and a is 2 and c is 3, all over 2a, and a is 2. So we have x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus, let's see, 4 times 2 is 8 times 3 is 24, so 64 minus 24 over 2 times 2, which is 4. Or we have x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 40. 64 minus 24 is 40 over 4. And the square root of 40 will break down. Let's say the square root of 40 is the same as the square root of 4 times the square root of 10, which is 2 square roots of 10. So we have x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus 2 square roots of 10 over 4. And each one of these is divisible by 2. So we'll have negative 4 plus or minus, this will cancel out, just give us 1 square root of 10, or just the square root of 10, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So our solutions, x is equal to negative 4 plus the square root of 10 over 2, and negative 4 minus the square root of 10 over 2. X squared minus 27 equal to 0. It just only has 2 terms, so out of a, b, and c, one of them have to be 0, won't it? Let's see. A is the coefficient of the squared term. It's 1. B is the middle term. It's 0. There is no term with an x on it. And the constant is negative 27. The constant is the number without the variable. So we'll start off. X is equal to negative b, which is 0, plus or minus the square root of 0 squared, b squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 27, over 2a, or 2 times 1. Or we have x is equal to 0, plus or minus the square root of, let's see, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, times negative 27, it's going to be positive 108. Okay, so this is negative times negative makes positive 108. And of course, 0 plus 108 is 108. 108 over 2, which just gives us x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 108 over 2. Now, 108 has a perfect square in it. I think 36 is the biggest perfect square in 108. Let's see, 36 into 108 goes 3 times. Okay, so the square root of 108 is the square root of 36 times the square root of 3, which is 6 square roots of 3. So we have x is equal to plus or minus 6 square roots of 3 over 2, which is equal to plus or minus 3 square roots of 3, because 2 goes into 6 3 times, it just reduces to 3 square roots of 3. So our solutions are x is equal to 3 square roots of 3 and negative 3 square roots of 3. And this is our last example. Example 5 is our last example. And on this one, you see there's only 2 terms, so 0 is got to be one of them. Let's see, a squared. A is the coefficient of the squared term, it's 5, and b is the coefficient of the middle term, it's negative 25, and so the constant, there is no constant, it's the one that's 0. So we have x is equal to the opposite of b, which would be 25, plus or minus the square root of b squared. Let's see, negative 25 squared is 625, minus 4 times a, which is 5, times c, which is 0, over 2 times a, which is 5. So we have x is equal to 25 plus or minus the square root of 625 minus, let's see, 4 times 5 is 20, times 0 is 0. So we have 625 minus 0 over 2 times 5, which is 10. So we have x is equal to 25 plus or minus the square root of 625 over 10. So we have x is equal to 25 plus or minus, now the square root of 625, 625 is a perfect square, that's 25 over 10. So now we have x is equal to, we'll have to separate it at this point, 25 plus 25 over 10 and 25 minus 25 over 10, which would give us 50 over 10 and 0 over 10. So our final solutions would be 50 divided by 10 is 5, and 0 divided by 10 is 0. So our final solutions would be 5 and 0. This is Jo Karen Hudson. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.